Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So a lot of stuff kind of got revealed in this episode. At first, there's they're honoring Daisy. She's super uncomfortable about it, but Jeffrey's just kind of sucking in and everything. It's like, okay, he's kind of a bit of an attention whore. He kind of loves the good press and everything, but then all of a sudden there's an attempt on his life. The entire episode just kind of like, oh man, there's something about, obviously there's something from Jeffrey's past that he's hiding. It's like, oh, what is it in this suitcase? Slowly but surely I came to the conclusion. I was like, oh, is it what I think it is? It's like, oh, could it be that, the fact is that it's like, oh, because Talbot's like, oh, he can't be separated from the suitcase. I'm like, is it because of one thing which turned out to be the thing? It's like, he's not a human. I was like, what? He's kind of dumb. I was like, oh, did they make, what was it, like a temporary super soldier serum or something like that? But I was like, no. Essentially, he's using the same formula that Daisy's dad used, granted, I mean, without the like hulking and crazy side effects that it caused him, because it literally drove him insane. I think, like, if I remember correctly, his name was Mr. Hyde in that form. Granted, I think that's like a actual Marvel character. Obviously, that version of him is probably different from his comic book counterpart, but I remember somebody mentioning that, so I'm thinking that was kind of the whole thing. But nevertheless, it's just like, huh. And it's kind of a temporary thing, so it doesn't last long. I'm sure that's another reason why he doesn't go insane. Obviously, he's like, because Talbot's like, of course, we made modifications to it so he wouldn't go crazy. But also the fact is he's taking it in intervals, so it's like only when he needs to show off his like superhuman strength does he have it. So it's just like, man, everything's been a lie. Because for Talbot, he's like, yo, I was trying to find the perfect candidate to take over. Obviously, the person who takes over has to be an Inhuman, but for him, there was no one that fit that criteria. Obviously, for Coulson, he wanted Daisy to take over, but it's like, yo, Daisy was off being rogue and everything, so couldn't really rely on her. Not really sure Talbot would have been all okay with it anyway. And that's another thing about this episode, kind of really our first time seeing Talbot under these new circumstances, that basically he kind of runs things with Mace isn't around, essentially. I mean, even though he's the one that kind of runs Mace, like everything kind of runs through Talbot, you kind of see him kind of pushing his weight around. A lot of the stupid changes to S.H.I.E.L.D. it's because of him, like the whole color correction thing about like positionings and stuff like that. He's like, oh, May, I'm gonna give you access, I'm gonna let you go to level pink or whatever, something like that, so you have access to stuff. And it's like he's the one that kind of decides a lot of that stuff. I did like what he said to May, being like, May, I will honestly say, next to my mother, you are the second most intimidating woman I have ever met. But it's crazy. It kind of makes sense that this would be his idea, because it's like, honestly, I'm not 100% sure how exactly he feels about Inhumans. Like, I don't know. It does seem like I'm sure for him, it's just kind of like he'd rather, that's why he chose Jeffrey, because it's like, he feels like, I mean, mainly it's because of the whole Vienna situation, which we did kind of find out the truth about, because with Vienna, it's like, oh no, that was all a lie. Essentially, well, it wasn't really a lie, it was just something that spun out of control. When he, like, during the whole situation, he tripped, and someone happened to take a photo when he was right next to him. He didn't even see her, and it's like, man, I was not expecting it. Like, I figured there was going to be a situation where something there just wasn't quite what it seemed like. I didn't know what I really expected. It's like something along those lines, like you weren't the brave hero that people kind of paint the picture of you as. So, but that was just kind of interesting, finding like so much about him is shattered. But you do have the thing about Coulson being like, you know what? No, I don't care if you're not real. Like, the fact is, you've done a good job. For one, you handled the job a lot better in certain aspects, like the whole political side of things. You're kind of good at lying, handle that stuff. I've never liked the politics of things, but you be the face of the organization. But behind the scenes, I'm running things. So it's kind of cool. Because something crossed my mind. I was like, because I was watching, like, I was like, okay, because I was thinking, like, oh, the moment this is, I was like, oh man, this totally puts Daisy in a position to be, the new head of it, because it's like she is an Inhuman. So, but I mean, because the thing is, you also, like I said, have to get through Talbot. Like I said, it doesn't seem like he outright has a problem with Inhumans, but it seems like there's still something probably there. Like, he'd probably better trust the human, as it's since why he chose Jeffrey for this position. Or, because I'm sure there's plenty of qualified Inhumans that he just, I don't know, maybe he couldn't bring himself to trust. Like I said, the only probably trustworthy Inhuman he really knew of was Daisy, and I don't really know how 100% he felt about Daisy, but it's like, even then, it's like, well, it probably even less so now that I'm thinking about it, because it's like, because of what she was doing, like, he knows the whole situation was just kind of, Daisy acting on her own. It's like, that's still, like, a bad thing. They're covering it up and everything, but it doesn't change the fact that she was off on her own, doing her own thing, so that means Talbot's going to be less likely to accept her as the new head. What I was thinking, though, is like, if not Daisy, maybe the senator's brother, because obviously whatever that situation is going on about, it's like he might be the one that be like, oh, they end up finding out he's still alive and circumstances play out. Like to me, it just clicked in my head because literally last episode I was like, oh man, something's going to happen that kind of forces Daisy to kind of take over, and I was like, it's literally happened in this episode. It's like Jeffrey's found out as a fake. Obviously they're going to be keeping that a secret, but it's like, they can't let anyone know. But there's so much about that circumstances we never really got to find out about, because obviously everything was planned out to a T. It's like the whole fake assassination attempt. I mean, it was a real assassination attempt. It's like, but they knew it wasn't going to have success. They said like a 13% chance. Then the fact is they knew about the Quinjet, which I felt so bad about the dude that has a suitcase. Basically, he's kind of like Jeffrey's PR dude. He's kind of like brown noser. Just like, oh man, like I'm sure a lot of people snap some photos at you throwing that, like, Pettis, like, throwing that up in the air, like when it explodes, it's like, oh, saving the day type of situation. And then all of a sudden, it almost made me jump a little out because, I wasn't expecting, he just sucked out the jet like that. I was like, ooh. But it explains why like Mace was so adamant about getting that suitcase. It was because of that whole situation. They're like, oh, there's the truck that's jamming our signals. We should go take care of that. No, that make too much noise. Let's go after that. It's like, okay, we don't have any choice. You're the boss and everything. But that's why he was so adamant. It's like, what is in there that's so important? Is it some documents? I was thinking maybe it's something connected to Vienna. Like maybe it was circumstances that kind of, I don't know. Like, but why would it need to be so close nearby if that was the case? But I don't know. I still appreciate the reveal of that whole situation. So it's legitimately going to be very interesting to see how things go forward. Like I said, we got Coulson back at the reins, behind the scenes, which they're going to keep that secret because they can't let Talbot know that that's what's really going on. Probably going to keep certain things from him now because I'm sure Jeffrey used to report everything that went through him to Talbot. Like I said, because really, if you actually think about it, really, S.H.I.E.L.D. is technically run by Talbot because Jeffrey acts mainly through Talbot. I'm sure Talbot's the one that kind of gives him the orders. But it also seems like Jeffrey isn't really accustomed to, like, a soldier type of position. Because like you had like during the shootout and everything, he was like, okay, so how good are you with a gun? He's like, Talbot showed me the basics. But it's like for him just to know barely the basics shows you that he wasn't like a big time soldier or anything. He was kind of like probably low ranking. The question is, did he ever have any real military background? Like maybe, I don't know, maybe he's had some training, but not to the extent like a high level S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Definitely not May or Phil level, not even Daisy level, not even Mac level. The fact is, when you think about Mac's an engineer and he's a badass, which side note, just because it's in the back of my mind because I'm talking about Phil, love that shield. I love it every time he brings it up. Obviously, I'm sure you can't have that come up too often because it's like, that costs a lot of money to like do that, but still it's like, that's so cool when it comes up. I just like, that's so awesome just seeing it in this episode. So but nevertheless, it's like, it's just kind of interesting to me. It's like, I feel like out of anyone, why not choose someone a lot more well trained? Like you could have literally chosen anyone. Obviously because of the inhuman aspect of it, but it's like, why not pick someone a little more well-trained to take the drug, It's like, granted, I guess when you break it down, it's like, look at Captain America. Like, he was kind of a scrawny dude before he got the super soldier, before the super soldier project. So it's kind of like, he had the right morality. Like, he's kind of the right moral compass and right. So he fit the bill. But it's like, for Talbot, it's like, nah, like, it's a combination of a moral compass, but also because it's like, oh, he's a hero because of what he did. So it was more so of what that type of the Vienna situation. So I don't know. At the end of the day, even Phil himself gives Jeffrey credit because like he is very upfront. He's like, yo, I wanted to do the right thing. Talbot called to me and he was like, I want you to do this. And he's like, I know I'm living a lie, but at the very least I can live this lie to the best of my ability, try to be the best, person I can for the situation. Because he believes Inhumans have the rights, just as much rights as humans do. I kind of trailed off from it. I do apologize. It's the point I was trying to get across earlier was like, the fact is we don't know who actually was behind all of it. I know I got super far off track. I almost completely forgot about that. We still never found out who it was. And did that person, never mind. I take that back. We do know who it was because basically they were ex-Hydra people because Hydra has been dismantled to a certain extent, but a lot of, in their words they used, the rats have scattered. And essentially, they were hired by the watchdogs, obviously meaning the senator is behind this. More specifically, probably the superior, whoever it is at the head of the watchdogs, So, but the fact of the matter is, it's like a probability thing. The reason why he's like, oh yeah, we knew the probability that you would take this route. How they know that they would be in a jet and that through that escape route where they would be and everything. So maybe the person at the head of Watch Dogs isn't 100% human themselves. Maybe they're hiding. Maybe it's kind of like a hypocritical type of thing where it's like, oh, we got to hunt down these monsters. I'm gonna use my powers to hunt down all these monsters, kill all these monsters, and once they're all dead, I kill myself to kind of wipe out Inhumans from Earth. Use my gift to rid this world of monsters. So, that type of situation. There are cases and stories where stuff like that happens. It's like you're the same thing as someone else, but it's like you want to wipe them all out. So you use your powers to wipe them out, then you take care of yourself. That's kind of might be their superior's end goal. Or maybe just whatever the connection must be, because it's like, how did you figure something out like that? It's like a probability thing. It's not like like only someone within S.H.I.E.L.D. would know the protocols for that. So and that does beg the question. And also, did they know what's inside of that suitcase? Maybe they knew it was important, but they didn't know exactly what it was, or maybe they did. So, like I said, it brings up many questions, because if that is the case, well, even if they had gotten it, it wouldn't matter, because the drug is tailored to Mace's DNA, so it would only work for him anyway. Plus, he was the only one that could open the case too. So, I don't know, not unless they re-engineered it and got it so it can work for every Watchdog member, get them super strong so they can fight against these, Inhumans. So, but that wasn't the only thing that went down in this episode. A lot of stuff around the Ida Radcliffe type of stuff. For one, Fitz is basically like, yo, sorry, Radcliffe, you probably should avoid being around HQ because everyone's not going to be happy with you. It's like, yes, the whole Ida situation, I mean, to their knowledge, the whole Ida situation happened because of the Darkhold, but at the same time, it's like he still built the robot and it went crazy. Obviously, Mac's not the biggest fan. Obviously, Yo-Yo isn't the biggest fan either. But then you have, Radcliffe, it's like, crap, this sucks, because he needs to be nearby to make sure that fake May keeps up appearances, because it's like he needs to be there to make sure she acts like normal May, because it's like the slightest thing will kind of trigger people becoming suspicious of her and whatnot. But so far nothing's happened, but I'll kind of obviously that what happens, but I'll kind of get to that in a little bit. But mainly there's a thing about Radcliffe I find very interesting is Radcliffe isn't okay with Ida being all killerish. Like when you looked at Eli, it seemed like Eli didn't care about dropping bodies. He did what he did to everyone that was connected to him. But even with this whole Darkhold situation, Radcliffe hasn't completely flipped his lid. So maybe it's a situation where he can be pulled back from it. I don't know. Like, that's when I was kind of under the impression he would be your main antagonist. Like, oh, he's the main bad guy. I thought Ida was going to be the main bad guy. But it's like, maybe there's kind of a side plot of like, oh, like he might be a bad guy. Because obviously this is a long con for him. But the thing is, he was upset that Ida killed that dude. Not only because it was like, oh, it ended up drawing attention to him and everything, and he had to kind of change his plans. But it was also because he didn't want her killing someone, because I think on some level, he legitimately does want a shield for S.H.I.E.L.D. He wants, people protected. He doesn't want people killed. So either the Darkhold didn't really get 100% a grasp on him, maybe from the little bit he read of it, it inspired him, it drew him in, but he's not completely caught up in it like that lady's husband or Eli, so I mean, so much, like, because he's even like, okay, I guess he's like, I'm gonna have to reprogram, Ida to not be so threatening, like using force. She's like, I'm only going by the protocols that you give me. He's like, well, you follow them a little too well. It's like, I didn't want you to have to kill him, because she was even doing, oh, don't worry, next time I have to be in a situation like that, I'll dispose of the body more carefully. He's like, no, don't worry about disposing the body. How about you just don't kill anybody at all? I mean, almost killing May, especially when she used those words like, oh yeah, Agent May is off in a better place. I was like, what the hell does that? Did you kill her? It's like, no, you wouldn't, especially with this whole conversation going on. At the time, I didn't think about that, because like, yeah, you literally just had a conversation about not killing anyone. But it seems that basically this entire time they've had May hooked up in kind of like a almost kind of Matrix-y situation. It's kind of like basically to put her mind at ease, and they've kind of trapped her in like a tranquil scenario to kind of keep her at peace. But they kept noticing, they're like, okay, her brainwave activity is weird. She's like fighting this for some reason. It's like, I don't get it. And then May does the unthinkable. She just wakes up. I was like, I was not expecting that. Almost gets, I'm not really almost gets away. Doesn't make it far before Ida kind of chokes her. And it's like, Radcliffe is like, don't kill her. Don't kill her. It's like, killing her, obviously, bad guy perspective would be the best thing to do. It does make you wonder, like, what does Radcliffe plan to do when it's all said and done? It's like, she was obviously in this circumstances. I guess he would argue it's like, oh, Ida had hidden her away and he never knew. That could be the lie, once they actually set the real Agent May free. Or maybe they mess with her brain a little bit, make her wake up in her apartment and think like, oh, she was like, everything was, oh, and then like everyone asking all of these questions about what happened and she'd be like, oh, I don't know. Like she seems all forgetful and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe that was a plan, but I mean, obviously that's out the window now because she knows Radcliffe's behind this whole situation. And they ended up finding out why May woke up. It's because they used the wrong scenario. Because basically, she was put into a spa or whatever. But then Radcliffe figures it out. It's like May's kind of a fight. She's not kind of. She's a fighter. She's a tough lady, and it's like she, in his words, thrives on conflict. You can't have someone like that just in a calm, peaceful environment because they can't get comfortable. They don't feel right, so that's why for her it didn't click. It didn't, like, the fakeness, the fake world didn't really settle in, so that's why she was kind of able to break free of it. But now that he knows that, it's kind of reprogramming it, so it's gonna, like I said, but still does make you wonder, like, what's he gonna do in the end of this, because she knows that he's behind it, so might not have a choice to kill her. But will that be the case or not? I don't know. I guess as long as, like, I mean, because what also coincides with that is fake May. Because fake May, like, even though she, like, because the whole point that he gets across is the reason why she can stay undercover and do her job well is because she doesn't know what she's really after, that being a dark hole, and she doesn't really know what she is, a fake. But the entire episode, she kept, like, when she was in, Lola, she kept looking in the mirror, and Daisy's like, yo, what's wrong? She's like, I don't know, something just doesn't feel right. Something feels off. She, Daisy interprets it as, oh, you mean between you and Coulson? It's like, what about me, between me and Coulson? It's like, yeah, and even there was a point where Daisy asked us, like, oh yeah, have you ever driven Lola before? And there was a moment where fake May kind of paused, and it's like, I don't know, would that have been I feel like that's a situation where real May would have been like, yeah, bam, 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 gave the real answer. But it's like, plus it also seems like she has been acting differently. The question is, at what point did May and this fake get switched out? Was it before her and Coulson started kind of pushing forward with their relationship and stuff like that? It seems like that might be the case, because it seems like May has been different lately. No, because like after the whole Darkhold situation, like it's been between the whole Darkhold situation and Eli, or maybe it was like after the whole Eli situation was handled, like sometime in between she was taken. I mean, I don't know. There's so many, I don't know. Like, it just makes you wonder at what point was she taken, what was the real May and what was the fake. But now, because the fake May ended up getting injured, she ended up looking in her wound as she saw the metal part, so she knows she's not human. Obviously, she's hiding it, but it's like, it does beg the question, what will she do? Because what kept her hidden was the fact is that she didn't know. It meant she didn't have to lie about anything. But now, on top of everything, she's got to lie and pretend that she's a real May. Like, what's this all going to mean in the long run? When everyone finds out the truth, it's like, will she tell them the truth? Will they find out? Like, how will she handle the situation? Like, the fact is, Radcliffe and them can see through her eyes, so they're probably going to stumble upon the fact is that she's aware of her circumstances, and maybe she'll come to Radcliffe because she figures out, oh, I'm a machine. It's like, maybe it'll be a situation where she actually helps the real May escape because she's like, oh, like she feels obligated to, like, or maybe it'd be a situation where she wants to kill the real May because it's like, no, I want to be the real May, everything's good, things between her and Coulson might be getting better. It's like, no, I have to get rid of you. I want to be the real May. It's a situation, where the person who's fake, wants to be a person of their own. It's like, with the real May around, that's not a possibility. So, like, so many ways this can all play out. And then finally, also the whole situation with Fitz and Simmons. Fitz is like, yo, we should fix Ida. And it's like, Simmons is like, no, because she was basically, because he wanted to study Ida, which Simmons is completely against, because it's like, yo, she killed, an agent and everything. It's like, that monster can't be trusted, essentially. But Fitz, like, still sees the potential. He's like, it's, the problem me and Radcliffe came across was the fact is that we didn't incorporate you into this. The fact is, about everything now. It's like, you can help me figure out the problem, look into her data and find out what's wrong. But Simmons was like, just let it go, Fitz. It's understandable because, for one, it's a new technology and he's seen what Ida's capable of, what she can mean for the future. Also because she is a S.H.I.E.L.D. for S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and it's like, the very circumstances that Phil, Mace, and Mac were in this episode, she would have been there to prevent that. The fact as they lost 2 agents this episode because of this whole circumstance, and it's like that's the reason why Ida would exist, to protect S.H.I.E.L.D. agents from dying and stuff like that. But you know, Simmons is kind of like sees it as a situation where it's like, oh, she's more danger than good. But then there's a situation where Fitz basically kind of downloads her data without telling Simmons, which, ooh, that's going to complicate things a lot in the future. But the fact is, he's looking into it, and Ida is thanking him. So I'm thinking, like, because obviously they're making it seem like this Ida was affected by the Darkhold, but then it's like, no, like she just had her programming tampered with by Radcliffe, and maybe that's something that Fitz is going to come across. I mean, in the long run of things, it's going to be like, you know, Simmons is going to be pissed because the fact is, like, you went behind her back, but at the same time, it's like, hey, you end up finding something, you can prove that she didn't go crazy because of the Darkhold. It does bring up many different questions, and like, why did she do what she was doing? Just overall, very good episode. I'm just curious to see how everything plays out in the future. It's going to be very, very interesting. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.